we're seeing, like as a market as a whole, is what's old is new again. So things like density. So if you want to be in retail, typically you need to have density, which would be like how many people are purchasing your product inside of Vancouver or BC, for instance. And as we get more density and more people know the brand, there's more likely to have like referrals by like social proof. Because, oh, you're using Tru Earth too, don't you love it? Like it's just, or like people talking about it at parties, and like two people at the party know about it, and then they start talking about it, and then one gets out some strips and gives it to the other people. Like if you only have one person in a state that knows about your product or has purchased your product, the ability for that referral system, you don't get that like compounding effect, because usually it's like they tell one or two people and then it dies, you know.
D2C marketers, let's get real. How many hours have you wasted searching for brand influencers only to come up empty-handed? It's time to stop spending time searching, scrolling, and haggling with influencers and start using creator marketing with #paid. With #paid, you can find your perfect creator match for your brand in less than 10 minutes every time. Getting started is easy. Just select your audience, campaign objectives, pick from a short list of creators, and hit run. It's just that easy. There's a reason why #paid is the #1 rated influencer marketing platform for D2C brands. As a D2C listener, you can even get credits for your first campaign. Just go to go.paid.com/DTCpod to get started. Hello and welcome to the D2C Podcast Emergency Update Edition. I am back with one of my favorite all-time guests and friends of D2C newsletter, Ryan McKenzie, co-founder and CMO of Tru Earth, which is one of Canada's fastest growing CPG brands, taken the world by storm, has revolutionized my laundry life by providing some free samples that just seem to last indefinitely and do the job of regular detergents, and have personally not put at least 5 or 6 giant bottles of detergent into the landfill, so we're saving the earth one laundry strip at a time. Welcome to the D2C Podcast, Ryan. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for inviting me to show back up and tell bad jokes again. Appreciate it. Yeah.
And you're always welcome. And I think let's kick things off just by talking a little bit about something that we launched on the D2C side late last week. We put on an event in May in Vancouver that Ryan also attended as a fellow West Coaster here in Vancouver, where we brought out 150 brands, and just the excitement of bringing people together was so palpable. We decided to really triple down on it, and we're actually putting on what we call the C-Suite, D2C's C-Suite Mastermind in Victoria, British Columbia, September 21 to 23rd. It's going to be an amazing event with probably, we're aiming for 50 of the top subscribers for D2C newsletter coming out and joining us at the Victoria International Marina. First thought was like, we got to get Ryan McKenzie to come be what we're calling a mentor at the event. So I'm pretty excited about September. What kind of things are you thinking of bringing to the table high level, Ryan, would you say?
I mean, there's been such a huge transition in the landscape of D2C as a whole in the last between the iOS 14.5 stuff that happened a year ago and just the looming recession or whatever you want to call it, but things that you can control, like what people are so worried about their ads, like what are the elements of your business that you can control, and like what are the elements that you can invest in that continue to pay dividends over the long haul, and how to look at acquisition and growth in these more tumultuous times,
Totally. Well, let's talk a little bit about growth and just, Tru Earth, you've just been on an absolute tear, I feel like, expanding through Canada, like really just dominating all over Canada, really growing into the US. What has growth looked like sort of since the pandemic for Tru Earth?
We were already on like a crazy tear before the pandemic hit, and like honestly, when the pandemic hit, we were like in panic mode because, well, everybody was in panic mode, but we were in panic mode because we didn't know whether like the mail system was going to get shut down, and we thought we'd probably be considered what's necessity or required, whatever that thing is, essential services, because we help people clean things, but we weren't sure. So we had set up all these plans, backup plans, where we had like people packaging in their homes, and we had a truck that was going around and picking up all that stuff. Like I think we're actually just finally selling that vehicle now since we no longer need it, but So there was a period there where we're like, okay, let's be cautious about how we proceed because there's so many what ifs. But the trajectory continued through that phase. Obviously, people were trying to avoid the grocery store a little bit during that period. And I actually think that, as much as I would like to say that it helped us, I think the onset of all the additional competition, because like every business was now purchasing Facebook ads and Google ads and working on their digital presence, that I think it while the whole industry, like e-commerce, grew by, I think the stat was like 37% in that period, it also massively grew the amount of people competing for those same impressions. So I think it probably increased our acquisition costs as a result. But
especially in that CPG space too, where there weren't as many players. You're ahead of as a geeky affiliate performance marketer. You've been a bit ahead of the curve probably with all of this stuff, and then seeing your competitors sort of getting a kick in the butt to realize that they're going to have to jump on that train as well. Yeah, I can see how that would flood the market a little bit.
But not just like, I mean, obviously there's people knocking off our stuff and whatnot, but not just that. It's just like there's a brewery down the street from here, and they were, a lot of their revenue came from having people sitting in the brewery drinking their beers. And during COVID, you can no longer have those people drinking beers. So what do? They started advertising, hey, we're now offering delivery or sales or whatever. And it's just, the more people that are competing for those impressions, the higher the costs are, right? But yeah.
So catch me up on the growth journey. We've got the part where you're a little bit worried about the overall thing, but when it comes to this year, for instance, versus last year, because we saw that huge boost of like e-commerce kind of taking over, and now it's kind of settled back into a bit more of a norm, which is still on a growth trajectory, but not the insane 30 years in a year or whatever. So what has Truest growth been like in 2022?
Yeah, we're still growing, and I mean, we're not just a D2C brand. We are omni-channel, so we're in retail. We're in like other channels like Amazon. We've got like other aspects of the business, like we do help with fundraising for schools. So like we have other channels that we're focused on growing there as well. But like our particular category is laundry, and still 80% of people who do laundry, which everybody does laundry, but 80% of people who purchase this category purchase it in store. So it's kind of it would be foolish for us to not be available in places where people are primarily purchasing our products. So we're already in a ton of retail, but we're looking to expand that to maximize those channels so that we're not missing out on that, as well as releasing new products. Just about 10 days ago, we officially released a toilet bowl cleaner, which is a strip you throw in your toilet, you let it dissolve, and you scrub, and you don't need to have another jug under your toilet. And I think it's funny. Right before this podcast, I was listening to something that I said, I don't know, like a year ago on some other podcast, talking about lifetime value, and like what I've noticed is that the businesses that are predicated on being profitable on the first sale are going to be the businesses that die the fastest death, because building a brand or building an e-commerce business should be about building a brand where you get loyal customers and you can create new products to offer them and extend that lifetime value. And your job as a marketer or as a performance marketer shouldn't be about how much money can you make on that first sale. It should be about what's the lowest price that you can acquire these customers, because you have predictable models for how much money you're going to make over 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years. And
it's this shift from that transactional thing to actually like viewing your customers more as like distribution channels. Because when you have that relationship, you have a distribution channel in a way for future products. And it's sort of thinking about it rather than just this transaction of these one-time purchases that you try to arbitrage and make money on. It is like, how do I keep selling to this person over time?
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing, like as a market as a whole, is what's old is new again. So things like density. So if you want to be in retail, typically you need to have density, which would be like how many people are purchasing your product inside of Vancouver or BC, for instance. And as we get more density and more people know the brand, know the product, there's more likely to have like referrals by like social proof, because, oh, you're using Tru Earth too, don't you love it? Like, it's just or like people talking about it at parties, and like two people at the party know about it, and then they start talking about it, and then one gets out some strips and gives it to the other people. Like, building that density. If you only have one person in a town or in a state that knows about your product or has purchased your product, the ability for that referral system, or this little network that you just discussed, you don't get that like compounding effect, because usually it's like they tell one or two people, and then it dies,
And so how have you built, so density has just been this Herculean effort across all fronts, where you kind of started it with proving the concept out D2C, and now you've really poured the gas on the retail side. Like, any tips for how people should think about getting to density?
Well, I think like density is really just a matter of like picking a region and like going deep. Like, 2015, 2016 Facebook ads, drop shippers were like going like broad or interest based or lookalike audience and global. And then, you would sell a couple, you're just basically skimming the cream off the top to make the maximum revenue. And you're not really getting an opportunity to build any significant brand awareness in a region. So, if you have an area that's performing really well, instead of going like all of Canada or all of the United States, like let's say Washington, maybe you sell football apparel. There's a football team in Washington. Like, go deep on Washington until you've got enough customers that like you could easily go and pitch a football store in Washington. This is all made up shit, but like, hey, you've probably seen my brand all over the place online. I think this would probably be a great product for your store. And they're like, oh yeah, I've heard it. I've seen it everywhere. I totally think we could sell tons of these. But it's difficult to approach a retailer and just be like, I have this product, you should sell it. You're completely going on value proposition. But if they've already seen your product 100 times or 20 times or 10 times in ads, and then you propose it to them, they're like, well, I've been seeing this everywhere. I'd be crazy to check all the other boxes. I know they're advertising it. This is a win-win for me.
So you would suggest too, like if you're building out a retail strategy specifically, then you'd have your broad campaigns where you're targeting nationally or maybe even internationally. But would you be allocating special budget to sort of saturate the regions that you're trying to win at retail in?
Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff like that in the past, where we advertise around the areas where we want people to know the brand. But I think like one thing that we've started doing is allocating kind of like top of funnel budget that's not specifically CPA driven. So we're not necessarily concerned what it costs us to get a purchaser from this revenue. It's like supposed to be like incremental lift, and especially when you think about it, like some of the less expensive objectives inside of Facebook or Google, they're less expensive because those people don't buy online. It doesn't mean those people don't buy. It just means they don't buy online. So you can use those objectives to build awareness for other activities, like just like when they see the product in the grocery store. If you're for sale now in one particular store and you want to do really well in that store, just do some inexpensive like discovery or video views or something within a couple kilometer region around that store. And you could even pick, if you want to go really hard, you can even say now available in this particular location. And I think Facebook actually has a data feed that you can plug in for that as well. But nonetheless, like you're getting exposure, and a lot of it where your product's being sold for very little money.
If you're in the city, you could even go there and film some UGC of like, here's what it looks like on the shelf, here's where it is in the store, and actually like run that as ad content too.
Totally. You know what's funny about that? Actually, like my personal social media feeds aren't like riddled with business related stuff. But when I post a picture of myself next to a shelf of product and post it like next to like me having kids and posting that I had a new kid, it's like the most engaged stuff. And I was telling my wife this the other day, I'm like, it's kind of crazy because you think that like, I don't know, it's kind of, I feel like there'd be like haters or something, and it would just kind of, sometimes people are, I don't know. It's just my personal opinion. Like people just
we're so Canadian, but our social networks do want us to do well.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. When I post, good things, that you do get a lot of support, right?
Yeah, and it's like I feel like it's like it's imbalanced. Like I don't feel like it should be that much support. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but like it's like this is really cool to see how much people like to see or get behind what you're doing and want to see it do well. And I think being on the shelf at retail is, to a lot of people, that's like a traditional big win.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so it's funny. We talked about the things that we can change, and then we went on a rant about marketing and retail, which was just great. But if we so one of the really cool things I think about this mastermind that we're playing in September is that people, are going to be able to come to Victoria for 3 days. They're going to be able to connect with all these people, connect with the mentors, and literally walk away with some, a handful of things that will, could drastically help them in Q4 specifically, and then in 2023 and beyond, essentially. So I'm just curious, just as a little preview, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you're focused on as a CMO in order to bring your costs down on the CRO side. Like what are you doing for instance, on the PDP page these days in order to optimize?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've obviously heard me talk about it, but personally, in most cases, unless somebody's already got purchase intent, I prefer to actually send them to a landing page where there isn't a buy box at the very top. And the logic behind this is that when somebody sees a direct response ad, there's basically three states that they can be in: child, adult, or parent. Child's emotional. So when they see the ad, they're like, "Oh, I've got that problem. I got that problem. Me. Yo, I got to fix this." Right? So they click it, and then your goal as a direct response marketer is to get the person emotionally bought into making this purchase. And what happens is when you send them directly to a PDP with a buy box at the top, you are immediately transitioning them into logic, because price is always logic. So like you're going from, I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited about this. And if your price is not like super cheap, the first thing they're going to do is like, ooh, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? When your goal should be to make that person think more about the problem and think more about what their life will be like when the problem's been solved. And then you introduce the price. And that's the adult portion, which is like price, kitchen table logic. How do the features of these benefits address issues in my life? Like looking for like confirmation bias, like, ooh, I need that iPad, but do I really need that iPad? Oh, well, I think it would be really good when I go into presentations. Like, you know what I mean? Like what are ways that you can convince people that they can rationalize that purchase? That's the adult phase. And then
put them in their shoes, like get in their shoes of what their life will be. This is like anything about self-help or self-development. It's all about being able to like crystallize this thought of yourself, what you'll be like when you've already done all those things. Because you sort of have to time travel a little bit in order to get to that place. And the same is true with customers.
Totally, future pace. And then the last thing is, and sorry, I'm tangenting here again too, but last thing is parent, which is like the skeptical parent. Like, why is this different than the 827 things that you've tried before? So that includes things like busting objections, and like money back guarantees, risk reversals. But so like, that's a long-winded way of saying, from a DR perspective, you're better off sending somebody to a page that has the buy box either further down and addresses all that information first. But if somebody's already intent on purchasing, or somebody's doing like a Google search with like buy laundry detergent or buy Tru Earth, at that point they might already be past the emotional stage. So you need to test in different parts of the funnel where's the best place to send them. Or you just move the buy box lower down the page and make it easy for them to purchase, which can also help as well. But in terms of like the actual PDP, there's a lot of like really simple things that people can do right out the gates. Like obviously making the add to cart button big and bright. You can do things like test hiding your the rest of your navigation so that you're not letting people leak out to other places on your site and get distracted. Making a sticky add to cart button as you scroll down. There's like, if you, I made a couple videos about it, but there's a lot of different things that you can test there. But the way I like to look at it as like, you're going to have the most bang for your buck on the first page that you send the person to. So address that first and slowly go down the funnel and make it better and better.
And so you go from landing page right to PDP or to cart page?
So I typically go, again, you have to test. Realistically, you should test it. Yeah, it depends on the source, but like typically if it's like first touch, I try to send them to a landing page, and the landing page usually goes to the PDP where there's like, your quantities and your cents and stuff. And then from there, they can kind of choose their own adventure. But we almost never send people to like a collections page. We've tested it. Maybe our collection page just sucks, but we do have a shop all page, and we that's another place that a lot of customers do go. Like they go to the header, and then it's one of our top. When they get to the site, that's like probably one of the top like 3 places that they go. So making sure that page is designed for to have your best performing products at the top. Right now we're testing something like super small, like see details versus view details. And, sometimes little tiny things like that make a big difference. Like it sounds so insignificant, but when you add all these little tiny things up that add 1 or 2% to your conversion rate, it makes a big impact.
And it's on entrepreneurs. It behooves, I hate saying the word behooves, but it behooves entrepreneurs to do this now when you just have to maximize the value of every interaction. You really have to kind of get ruthless on that performance marketing CRO side.
Yeah. And if you don't know where to start, man, there's agencies out there. There's lots of agencies that are good. And it's definitely emerging more as something that we just signed up an agency like a few weeks ago because I was doing it all. And like, it's stupid that I'm doing it. Like if you're the CMO, like it's fantastic that you know what you're doing and you want to do it and it's fun and exciting. But it's just like, we were at a quarterly retreat and I just had like this, why am I doing this? This is such a huge leverage point and I can't iterate quick enough. I need somebody that can iterate faster. And so I hired a good buddy of mine and his firm to do it.
I love it, but I think it's what makes you, such a great guest on the DTC podcast, first of all, is that you do have this inclination to kind of tackle things yourself at first. And I think it's part of that maturity to recognize, when you want to tap out and be able to scale it with help. But I think it's so valuable that you do have that impulse to kind of figure it out, figure it out first and then hand it off rather than trying to get an agency to sort of take it over from scratch.
Yeah. I was the kid in math class that if I didn't understand how the math worked, then I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't just trust the formula that the teacher said. Like unfortunately, maybe fortunately.
One of the other things you mentioned that you wanted to chat about at the upcoming C-Suite Mastermind, and I think it's part of who you are as a marketer, is this idea of diversification and sort of like growth. Like, well, you say it all the time, but we used to be able to hit the scale button on Facebook ads and sort of really scale there. But there's quite a bit, I feel like there's a different, more nuanced understanding of the way that diversified growth kind of looks like. And so what would you say, like what does your diversification strategy look like high level at Tru Earth?
Yeah, well, I mean, right, we're actually kind of like in the middle of changing how we look at it, but we're starting to use incrementality as a metric. So when we look at like, what is it? People are probably like, what the hell is incrementality, right? So incrementality is like when you look at all your campaigns, we're using a tool called Measured, but it basically breaks down campaign by campaign and source by source and tells you which ones that you should probably spend more money on because they're driving more new customers overall. And like the spend to new customer ratio is the most opportune here. And like you get to a point where it's like, scale your Google search. Well, you hit a point where you've optimized that as far as you can basically go, and then you're stuck analyzing all the different campaigns that you're currently running. So like really for us in the current ecosystem, it's where are we getting the most incrementality, and how far can you push it before that incrementality slows down, and also or overlaps, and then also like actively testing things like geolift, like doing geolift experiments. Like, is what I'm doing actually increasing new customers, or are we just like tapping back into people that we've sold to 45 times before that we're going to buy again? And they've seen our ads, so like they're in the attribution cycle. And I know other brands. I won't drop names, but like one brand I know that's very large cut their ad spend in BC like by a huge percent and moved it out to Ontario, and their numbers went through the roof. Like, because like it looks like BC's crushing it. Like for us, like, we're so well known here in BC. Like if I spend any dollars in BC, it looks like the results are amazing. But a lot of those, if I just didn't spend it, those numbers wouldn't be that much different. The incrementality on that spend is actually small. So that again,
you're just getting that pixel out everywhere to people that would have bought anyway.
Yeah, and that's part of that whole density thing. Once you hit a certain density, then you're able to reduce your spend and move on to another section, build density, or region, and build that density and continue going. So that was a really freaking long-winded, roundabout way of answering your question. But to diversify, at the end of the day, we're picking the channels that are driving the biggest results. And we are also spending to build density on regions where we want to see success outside of D2C.
And you're looking at your spend at a granular level in each platform to really make sure that the incrementality within each platform is really all that it's cracked up to be.
Totally. And like we use measured, it's not a customer journey, it's not a journey tracking platform, but like they dedupe and they have certain percentages that they apply to like each channel to eliminate overlap, to try to come up with a source of truth. And it's a pretty cool tool, but it's not inexpensive, but it's yeah.
So the other thing that we're talking about, of course, is this idea of thriving in a downturned economy. I'm just curious, from your level, like I've heard, among all of the products that might be affected by a recession, CPG is one of the most impervious categories. People are going to continue to need laundry detergent throughout whatever happens kind of in the world. I'm just curious, what is your take on this idea of an upcoming downturn recession? And are you seeing any sort of impact of it already?
I've been like secretly terrified about this for like 2 or 3 years. We probably talked about it. I can't remember, but so upside for us is that everybody does laundry. It's just par for the course. We haven't increased our prices yet, like a lot of other brands have, which, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's kind of given us the fact that we were a little bit more money originally, kind of give us a little bit more wiggle room here. But it's really hard to say, honestly. Like we kind of have to sit back and wait for it to pan out. I think people are going to be less likely to make impulse purchases and try new things when they're in a situation where money's tight. Like I've been, broke as hell, like 12 years ago, with a mortgage that I was way bigger than I can afford and trying to recover from a business going down. And I can remember, man, like I was going to Royal Canadian Superstore, which is like a big store out here, and buying like macaroni and cheese, but not Kraft, because I could save 20 cents on a box with the no name brand. And I was like buying like the cheapest ground beef they could have. And I was like rationing it all out. So I know that like when push comes to shove, if people are put in a really bad situation, they may have to trim luxury items. And so I don't know. I'm just hoping that it doesn't become like the 80s, where the interest rates get to 20+%. And,
Yeah, I remember my parents in the 80s were part of something called like a second mortgage club or something, that they got together with their friends and they pooled some of their extra money, and they would lend it to people who were looking to refinance their homes, and they could do it because the interest rates were 18% or something like that. But you think about that, but I think our money wasn't nearly as inflated back then, which is the kind of double whammy we have now, where we've got these crazy high interest rates, and then we also have this inflation where prices are kind of going out of control. It's an interesting time period here.
Yeah.
And I think what's key is figuring out how to, like, there will be there still will be massive opportunity here. People, the e-commerce trend isn't going anywhere. So it's about being able to have, not to have too much, have a realistic mindset, but probably not too much of a scarcity mindset. Because we all know that what you sort of project is what you experience in a lot of ways. I don't want to get too woo on the D2C podcast, but
no, it's true. Like I've had like, it's like a negative feedback, or it's a positive negative feedback loop, right? Where it's like your thoughts basically contribute to your reality, and like it's really easy to get sucked into having a negative outlook and being very binary on whether things are good or bad. And realistically, things are somewhere in between. And there's also opportunities when things aren't good, and there's also opportunities to slide down. But like even looking at like real estate, if the real estate market goes down 40%, and people are like, oh, I lost 40% of my equity. Well, you didn't really, because if you're still in the housing market, you can sell your house and you just go buy another house. You're benefiting when you're making the purchase. So it's like, you just got to look at it with an abundance mindset.
I like it. Now, about abundance mindsets, that's kind of the spirit of masterminds, right? Is where you go to this event, you meet with other sort of founders that are in similar boats. A lot of them have maybe solved problems that you're trying to face right now. I know in masterminds, aside from this one that you're coming to, are something that you've invested in the past. Can you talk a little bit about your experience going to different kind of masterminds in this space?
Yeah, I've been in a bunch. I've done some with Ryan Levesque back in the day. The Ask Method before, he used to have a group called Next Level Mastermind. It was amazing. Like that one was just like before he wound up shutting it down, but he had like everybody was in there. It was unbelievable. Like I met so many good people there, but I never actually went. I only went to one of those in person. But the one that I'm in now, and I've been in probably about 5 years, is Ezra Firestone's Blue Ribbon, and God, those events are my absolute favorite. Like just hanging out with, like you said, other people who have faced similar challenges to you, who also don't have a tremendous amount of in real life people that you can kind of like, shoot the shit about. Like shoot the shit about your problems. Like talk about the things that you're facing, that they're facing too, but not a lot of other people where you live are probably facing. And it really has like this. The best way to describe it is like feeling like you're home, like you're hanging out with your people, even if you don't know them right away. Like people, if you're nervous to network, like once you start talking with people that come to these things, they're there to hang out and make friends and to share. They're not there to judge you or whatever. They're there to like, and it's just like, it's the best, man. Like Molly Pittman, myself, some of the guys from Live Bearded, like we'll be like up sitting or like sitting there to like 4 a.m, just like talking about marketing stuff, and then talking about some problems that our types of people have that it's difficult to find people to relate to in everyday life. And it's like I never want to go to sleep. I just want to stay up all night just talking, and it's the best. It's just the best.
That's so cool. That really resonates. It's been a while for me. As you know, I came from an event space before. I was with a company called iStack, and I was doing these events around the world. We ended up doing a mastermind in Phuket. And it really was those late night conversations with people where, people's guards are down. They're just sort of like everyone's there to help each other. And it is. And you describing it as home is a really great feeling, because just being around a bunch of other people that are just sort of predetermined to kind of run in the same direction you are. It just does make for fast friendships, and it's made for some incredible like lifetime friendships as well, and business partnerships that have come out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And like even like just like little things too, like everybody's got something that they're good at, and a lot of people don't feel like they have like value to add, but they do. Like like you're doing this, you have an angle, or not you, but everybody's got like this angle or this thing that they're doing that's worked well for them, and you never know who might be able to benefit from what you've figured out. And it's just, I don't know, you come away with a bunch of ideas. You get away from your business, so you're not stuck in the weeds. You're not worrying about not in that backed into a corner scarcity mindset where you're like, oh, I need to fix this part of my business, or this is a problem, or this is on fire over here. You're disconnecting. You're getting to 30,000 feet, and you're getting aha moments for things that you can apply to your business, but that you can only get when you get away from the nitty gritty of the everyday. And those ideas don't necessarily pop into your head when you're driving with your wife to go on vacation. They pop up when you're surrounded by other people who are doing the same thing, and it's such a, I don't know. I sound like I'm like just like Captain Mastermind over here, but it's if you've never been to one, it's such a great experience.
Captain Mastermind is going to be here in Victoria. I'm just very excited to bring people to Victoria as well. It's such a special place where we have, it's the Victoria International Marina. It's this world class. I have to say this on the podcast. The event the place that we're having our event in, the previous event that was there just a couple weeks ago was literally, they were hosting a conference for super yacht owners, not yacht owners, like mega yacht owners. They basically hosted a conference for mega yacht owners. The theme of the conference was, how do we get people to stop hating mega yacht owners? So it's a high class place when you're previously occupied by mega yacht owners. So it's going to be a great time, and it is like, I'm excited for the learning. I'm excited for what you're going to be sharing there as a mentor. But so much of it is just, it's about the other guests as well, and the RSVPs we've had already from some crazy big brands that are going to be coming from all over North America and in Europe as well, to kind of come over to this thing, just, all based on this community that we've created with D2C. It's going to be so cool to bring together a bunch of brand owners and make some magic. If you want to go to this event, you can go to directtoconsumer.co/C-Suite-Mastermind. Just go to directtoconsumer.co and click on C-Suite. And you can secure your ticket. There's only 50 tickets. We've already sold more than a few. So if you want to come, you should book it up. Go to directtoconsumer.co right now and lock it in and make your travel arrangements. And it's going to be magical. Thanks for coming on today, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's always a pleasure. It's like the third time or the fourth time I've been on the show. I forget.
You're like my Ed McMahon. You're like... You're going to be on there. No, I love it. I think it's great. And it's like, we've only met in person a handful of times, but again, it's that same sort of, we sort of, I think we can tell we're similarly weird and similarly driven. So it's been a great friendship so far.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at directtoconsumer.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.